Did you know that Dave Kunst was the first person to walk across the entire world? But during his journey, he did use airplanes to cross the oceans. In total, Dave walked about 27,000 kilometers, even if it was in segments. But today, we're talking about someone else, not Dave, but someone who might have even outdone him. This guy set out to cross the longest continuous route in the world, and all on foot. Yep, where most people's imagination ends, that's where Karl Bushby's journey begins. It's not 5,000 kilometers, not 10,000, nor even 25,000 kilometers. Surprisingly, they've already covered 47,000 kilometers on foot. And the crazy part? Their journey isn't over yet. 25 countries, 6 deserts, 7 mountain ranges, and 27 years. But the goal was simple, to walk around the entire world, and all without any support. But how exactly? Meet Nazrin and Karl Bushby, an ex-paratrooper from England who has taken on one of the world's most risky challenge of walking a long distance. On November 1st, 1998, with just $500 in his pocket, he truly began his journey from Punta Arenas, a city at the southern tip of Chile. Cal named this mission the Guyot Expedition. This was the start of a mission where he planned to cross the entire American continent, head to Russia, then Asia, and finally finish his journey back in his hometown in England. The total distance came to 58,000 kilometers. According to Karl's estimate, even if he walked 19 kilometers a day, he would complete the journey in 8 years easily. But little did they know the challenges they would face, and that even after 27 years, the journey still wouldn't be over. Karl Bushby set 2 rules for his expedition. First, no rides, no trains, cars, planes, or any motorized vehicles. They had to walk every single step. And second, if they had to stop the journey for any reason, they'd have to start again exactly from where they left off. He took his final step. These rules sound simple, but Karl paid the price with years of loneliness, visa troubles, and the constant fear of death. Karl Bushby set foot for the first time on the stones of South America. Hot weather, wild paths, and a new challenge around every corner. After starting out from Chile, he mostly stuck to the Pacific coast and the edges of the Andes Mountains as he moved forward. That way, he avoided crossing the toughest parts of the world's largest Amazon jungle. But before heading to America, what troubled them the most was the weather and the terrain. At the start of their journey in Patagonia, they faced extremely strong and cold winds. Then trekking up and down the world's longest Andes mountain range was a challenge in itself. In northern Chile, they had to cross the Atacama Desert, one of the driest and most barren places on Earth. The biggest problems there were the lack of water and the intense heat during the day. For the first time, they had to carry more water than usual, along with their essential gear. Karl Bushby had a pushcart with him. It was a small cart on 2 wheels that he could easily pull, carrying food, clothes, and some essentials. Karl says that while crossing the Atacama Desert, he only stopped when he found water. Crossing South America was definitely a big milestone, but the real challenge was the Darien Gap, a 320-kilometer stretch between Colombia and Panama. This area is dense jungle, full of strange insects, venomous snakes, and even guerrilla gangs. Karl faced all of this. The main thing was to get out of here safely. When crossing the Panama border, he was even arrested by the Panama police and kept in jail for 18 days. But after being released, as per the rules, he had to resume his journey from exactly where he left off. Crossing Central America itself was a big challenge. There's a chain of small countries here, and at every border, visa issues meant they spent a lot of time waiting. By 2002, Karl had already crossed Central America. Then he entered the US, where sometimes he had to walk on long highways to avoid traffic, and other times he had to battle the scorching heat of the Sonoran Desert. The weather here was even hotter than Chile's Atacama Desert. By 2005, when he reached Canada and Alaska, the weather had completely changed. He faced intense cold, heavy snowfall, and some of the toughest terrains. In Alaska's remote areas, where there were no roads, he often used dog sledding trails to carry supplies and find his way. The sleds helped compact the snow so it was easier to travel on. Maybe, but even at this point, Karl didn't use dogs for help because that would break the most important rule for him. No help from anyone. After Alaska, the challenges Karl Bushby faced turned out to be the biggest and most dangerous of the Goliad expedition. To get from Alaska and North America into Siberia, Russia, he had to cross the Bering Strait, a sea frozen over with ice connecting America and Russia. The biggest challenge here is that the ice on the Bering Strait doesn't stay still. The waves keep shifting large chunks of ice around. The ice chunks kept shifting constantly. Between these pieces of ice, there was open water. Cal even swam through the freezing water several times to get from one ice floe to another, facing the harsh Arctic cold and the looming threat of hypothermia. Cal crossed this part of the Bering Strait on foot with a French adventurer named Dmitry Kiefer. The 240-kilometer journey involved braving Arctic storms, going without sleep for 14 days, and finally, when they reached Russia, they faced their biggest obstacle yet. The Russian authorities arrested them. No doubt about it. Karl had a valid visa to enter Russia yesterday, but the Russian authorities said that the Bering Strait music isn't an official port of entry. Because of this issue, Karl was deported back to the UK. That could have been the end of his journey, but since Karl had become a famous figure by then, Britain's Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott and Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich stepped in and got him permission to travel in Russia. Still, the trip wasn't easy. His visa was only valid for 90 days. So every 90 days, they had to leave Russia and go back to some other country. Sometimes these delays lasted for months. In 2008, their funding ran out. At that time, they stayed in Mexico and just waited for 2 years. Then, in 2011, after getting funding again, Karl entered Russia once more. Walking on the icy rivers of the tundra regions, he had reached deep into Siberia. Even the smallest mistake here could have cost Karl his life. But he kept going. Every year, 3 months walking, the other 9 months waiting for a visa. In 2013, Karl got a huge shock when he found out. Turns out, Russia had banned him for 5 years. But the guy wasn't about to give up. Instead of staging a sit-in somewhere to record a protest, Karl came up with a unique plan. He walked all the way from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., a whopping 4,800 kilometers, and protested right outside the Russian embassy. Just that journey alone was a huge record in itself. When the media covered this unusual protest, the Russian authorities lifted the 5-year ban they had placed on him back in 2014. And now he's got a Russian visa again and is in Siberia. They reached the exact same GPS point where they had started their journey. After leaving Russia, Cal arrived in Mongolia. There they crossed the Gobi Desert, which stretches over 1,130 kilometers. Then through China, they passed into Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. But the Iranian visa blocked their path once again. It was during the pandemic, and Cal's journey was stuck in Turkmenistan for a long time. When the Iranian visa still didn't come through, in 2022, Cal came up with a dangerous plan. He thought, if I can't go to Iran, then from the Caspian Sea, I can definitely reach Azerbaijan by swimming. For this journey, he had a small kayak, not for himself, but to carry his stuff. He crossed 288 kilometers of the Caspian Sea in 31 days. Every day he swam for 6 hours, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. Then at night, he'd climb onto the kayak and sleep there. The strong waves tried hard to stop him, but he didn't give up. He said he doesn't really like swimming, but it was necessary. In the end, he made it to Azerbaijan and started walking from there. In 2025, Azerbaijan entered Turkey. By then, he had become so famous that every village invited him to their homes for a feast. Talking to the BBC, Karl said he would never forget the hospitality he experienced in Turkey. In Istanbul, he was supposed to cross the Bosphorus Strait to enter Europe. Only vehicles were allowed on the Bosphorus Bridge, but the authorities gave Karl special permission to walk across it, so he officially entered Europe on foot. On this occasion, he mentioned that when he left, Tony Blair was still in the UK. He was the Prime Minister. Now Britain has had 5 new Prime Ministers. I feel like when I go back home, that country will be a whole new place. After an incredible 27 years of hard work, Karl Bushby has just 3,000 kilometers left. His goal is to reach the UK by passing through Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Austria, Germany, and France. But tomorrow there's going to be another big challenge. The English Channel. The tunnel that connects the UK and France. Walking through the Channel Tunnel is strictly banned because high-speed trains pass through there. Extreme heat and lack of oxygen. But there's another way, the service tunnel. The Channel Tunnel actually has 3 tunnels, 2 for trains and 1 emergency tunnel called the service tunnel. However, to walk through this tunnel, Cal will need special permission. It's expected that Cal will complete the final leg of the Bushby Goliath expedition in 2026, right in his hometown. By then, he will have traveled 58,000 kilometers, which is about 1.5 times the circumference of the Earth. Cal's expedition clearly shows this. A person sets their own limits. But the truth is, they don't really have any limits. They can do whatever they want. So next time you feel like life has come to a halt, remember that the clock is still ticking. Sure, the world is huge, but it can seem small compared to a person's determination. As someone once said, life doesn't stop, it just changes direction. Hope you all like and share this video. Thanks so much for your loving comments. See you in the next awesome video.